Welcome to my greenhouse. In today's video I just want to talk about tomatoes, how to prune them, why you should be doing that. So yeah, let's jump into it straight away. There is a large, vast amount of different types of tomatoes and actually techniques how to prune them. Some of them don't require pruning, but in most cases you definitely want to do that. Now, before we're actually going to jump into the action, let's understand why you would have to prune your tomatoes. Well, for a few reasons. First of all, as you can see, tomatoes do create a lot of leaves and they do grow very, very quickly. And usually what happens, the bottom leaves of the plant are actually covered by the ones that grow above it. And over time, they become weaker, and most of the cases they will be attacked by different types of diseases. Unfortunately, tomatoes are really prone to different types of diseases, blight and anything like that. And pruning is one of the things that will help tomatoes to avoid or delay the potential diseases that may affect them. So pruning the bottom leaves is to make sure that the leaves that are not needed by the plant anymore will be removed. It will also help to prevent watering your plants, watering your tomatoes over the leaves. Watering your tomatoes over the leaves, putting water on the leaves, can accelerate the growth of any potential diseases, and we definitely want to avoid that. That's why having clear access to the bottom of your plant where there are no leaves is really important. Also, same thing applies. If you've got some leaves touching the soil, touching the ground, you should really remove them, as most of the cases that's where diseases will start. Another important thing is to have a good airflow between your plants and within your plants, okay? So having less unnecessary leaves that are not needed by the plant anymore, will help that. And having good airflow will mean the plant itself will dry out a little bit quicker if there's any moisture on it, which means again less potential for any diseases to happen. And this is even more important if you have your tomatoes in a greenhouse, like I do. However, that will also apply to plants that are growing outside, for example in your raised beds or in large pots. Now, what tools will you need to prune your tomato plants? Well, you can do it with your hands, as they do snap off quite easily. However, sometimes you can damage them accidentally. You can also use clippers or scissors. My preferred choice is the scissors. Whichever you're going to go for, make sure to put them in boiling water to sterilize them. So if you use them on different plants in your garden, they won't transfer any diseases to your tomato plants. Right, so let's have a look how a tomato plant is built. So you've got one leading main stem, and then to the side you've got some leaves growing. Tomato plants also will produce something that we call suckers, and in most cases you want to remove them. So how to recognize a sucker? Well, as I said, you need to follow the main stem and the leaf part, and between the main stem and the leaf you're going to have something that's called a sucker. Now, usually these can grow into a normal full-size tomato plant, i.e. they will produce a main stem and suckers on their own. On top of it, you may have some fruit from them. However, the more suckers you will have, the more chances for smaller harvest. The tomatoes could be smaller in number, but also much smaller in size, as there's only one root system feeding the whole plant. So you really want to remove the suckers. Sometimes you can actually have your tomatoes to have 2 or 3 leads, but I wouldn't recommend going more than 4 for sure, as it will be very hard for the plant to actually feed itself. Now, from this tomato plant, I've actually pruned the leaves from the bottom as they were touching the soil, and as I said, we don't want that. However, as you can see, it released 2 suckers at the bottom, and I'm going to cut them off as I don't want to have them on my plant. Next, I've got this leaf. It's a little bit too long and there's potential for water to be running on it and touching the soil. So I'm going to cut that off as well. And for now, I'm going to leave it as is. There's plenty of space at the bottom over here for the air to go through. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow the main stem and the leaves that are popping off to the side and look for the suckers. Okay, as you can see here, I've got the leaf, the main stem and the sucker coming up at about 45-degree angle, and that's what I'm going to be removing from my plant, as I only want to have one main stem on this particular plant. Again, following the main stem, I've got the leaf over here and another sucker I need to cut off. And I will do that for every single leaf to check if there are any more suckers. And as you can see, I've got another one over here. And another one just at the top. And we got to the top of our plant. I can see we've got some beautiful flowers over here, and hopefully we'll have some really nice tomatoes out of them. And again, just carry on and check if there's any more suckers. So I've got a leaf over here and a tiny little sucker just there. I'm going to snip it off with my fingers. And the top itself, just leave as is, okay? Just wait until it grows a little bit more to see if there's any more pruning that needs to be done. So let's go through with it on another plant, okay? It's a little bit congested over here, so I'm going to remove a few leaves from the bottom, as the plant won't need it anymore. And just over here, that's another sucker, okay? So it grown its own main stem. It does have leaves to the side and actually even started to produce some flowers. Now, if you leave it be, again, you can weaken your plant and that will get a little bit congested in my greenhouse. If you do have the space, as I said, you can have 2 or 3 main leads on your plant. In my case, I'm going to cut that off. And again, I'm going to follow the main stem, leaves, and I can see another small sucker coming off here, so I'm just going to remove it with my fingers. Again, main stem, we've got some flowers over here. Leaf and another sucker. I'm going to take that off. Follow the main lead. Leaf, another sucker here. And now we got to the top of our plant, okay? That's the main lead. That's the leaf. And we've got another sucker coming off here. Sometimes it's actually hard to say which one is the main lead. Now, if you cut the main lead off, your plant will most likely stop growing any further. However, then you can use, for example, in this case, a sucker to grow your plant further if you wanted to. And as I go, as the plant grows, I'm just wrapping my tomato around the string. So the tomato itself will have full support. However, as I mentioned, you can have 2 separate leaves from the same plant. And that's what I've got on this one and on this one. I've let one of the suckers go, so we're gonna have 2 main stems heading upwards from one plant. And the principles of looking after this plant like this is exactly the same. So if you've got 2 main stems now, i.e. you let go one of the suckers to actually grow, it will produce exactly same features as the main stem. So again, you need to prune it off and remove the suckers from the sucker itself. In general, you do have 2 types of tomatoes: determined and indeterminate. So what does it mean? Well, the indeterminate plants will actually grow as long as the weather allows them to. So they could grow up to a few meters long or tall, depending if you're growing them upwards or maybe leaving them on the ground. Whereas the determined plants, they will actually stop growing at a certain height. So what you can do with the indeterminate plants, when they reach, for example, a height that you require or you are limited, for example, by your greenhouse, you can cut off the tip of your tomato. Okay, that means they will stop growing higher anymore. However, below they will still produce the fruits that we all really love and cherish in our gardens. So these are the basic rules around tomatoes and how to prune them and why you should be doing that. And I do encourage you to look after your tomato plants to prevent any potential diseases, and so you will have nice, beautiful, large tomatoes. Now, when it comes to cherry tomatoes, the rules are a little bit different, as you do want to have as many branches as you can to have as many fruits as you can. So again, it all depends on the plant itself you've got in your greenhouse, or for example somewhere outside in your garden. However, that's all what I wanted to share with you today. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, drop me that like button down below, and if you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing to it as well. And do me a massive favor, share this video with your family and friends, and maybe they will find it helpful as well. For today, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.